to see this interaction. And now we're going to continue with another AI topic, an AI-related presentation by Nazmiye Ebrar Güneş from Istanbul University. Nazmiye, floor is yours.
Thanks for the introduction and previous presentation. I'm Nazmiye Ebrar Güneş. I am a MA candidate at Istanbul University, Department of Public Law. I'm sharing my screen right now. If I can, yes. Okay. Today I will share with you my paper titled A Functional Approach to Debates on the Authorship of Artificial Intelligence and its Products under the European Convention of Human Rights, Protocol 1. Intellectual property law is seen as a legitimate right on the basis of human creativity, labor, and being an extension of personality. However, today, by using AI system, unpredictable, original, and economically valuable outputs are obtained. This situation pushed the boundaries between the studies of person and property in the current legal doctrine. The aim of the paper is to propose functional property rights studies and ownership for these economic values that is compatible with the Strasbourg case law. I have concentrated my scope on the European Convention, taking into account its wide range of activity and binding power. As I talk about my presentation plan, first we will talk about the working principle of machine learning and creative artificial intelligence and what kind of outputs they can produce. Then we will mention theories, the theories about the legal status of AI and its products. And finally, I will explain a functional approach that I propose in the context of European Convention. Let's quickly identify our key concept. Machine learning is the process by which artificial intelligence recognize patterns in data, makes inferences from this data, and continuously improves its performance without the need for explicit programming. Creative artificial intelligence, we can say generative AI also. It's not only analyzes existing data, there are programs that generate new contents that is original and unpredictable. What is AI works? These are artworks and inventor projects. They have an economic asset value that emerge as a result of the autonomous process of AI system. There are two schools in the literature regarding the studies of generative AI, theories of personality and things. Personality theory, it's proposed to grant legal personality to AI as a law policy. For AI, natural person, we say a real person, legal person, and electronic person models have been proposed. The other approach, the things theories, suggests that AI should be treated as property as usual. In addition to the views that see as usual intellectual property, there are also the suggestion, the studies of animal-like and slave-like property due to the unique characteristic of AI. Let me briefly mention the characteristic of intellectual property. Intellectual property is defined as the intangible products of human intelligence and creativity. It can be violated during the training process of AI programs with data and the use of the output of the AI program without the consent of the right holder. The guarantee of intellectual property rights are especially the right to property, freedom of art and science, the right to freedom of expression and information, And finally, the right to respect for private life. I can press now. Since the classical intellectual property ownership justification lacks legitimacy for AI works, various models have been proposed in the literature. You can see on this page all of it. These models can be grouped into two orients as the first one is the models that propose the share of the beneficiary candidates, which they are owner, user, creator of the program. And the second one, the models that exclude other beneficiary candidates by accepting one beneficiary. Why do I find these models insufficient? Because these models only serve to fill the legal gap through the formation of legislation. However, in period when legislation cannot keep up with the rapid development of technology, various criteria should be proposed through interpretation from the existing legal framework. At this point, the claim of the study is that conflicting rights can be resolved with judicial criteria reached by interpreting European Convention of Human Rights, Article 1 of Protocol 1. Okay. Coming to the original part of the paper, I evaluated the opinion of the courts in the relevant decision by searching with the keywords artificial intelligence and advanced technology through the official case database. Then I analyze which of the right groups I state that secure intellectual property is associated with. Since there is no direct decision on the ownership of AI products yet, in order to determine the meaning attributed by the court to personality, I detect the criteria used in application regarding asset whose personality was seen controversial. In addition, I determined the criteria for the property owner for digital intellectual works and the sharing of economic value. Although the court evaluates on the basis of the text of European Convention of the Human Rights and additional protocols, it also takes into account the legislation aiming at the legal unity in the European Union. I mean, in terms of democratic development. Therefore, the legislative preparation here are important. I have listed basic legislation on this page. As we see the attitude of the court, which is the first step of our analyze, I mean, the attitude of the court toward technological developments will eliminate our interpretation direction while filling the legal gap. In the next page, I included the main decision I criticize. However, it is not possible to mention all of them in a limited time. The principle, yeah, in summarize, the principle observed are the goal of becoming a modern information society, non-misuse of technology and transparency, non-violation of human rights and protection of vulnerable groups, the wide discretion of states in ethical debates, and the principle of precaution. When I compare the principle determined with the European Union approach, we can say that while European Union primarily protect the market value of the works, the European Court of Human Rights emphasized the risk factor against advances technology. I can move on this page. No decision was found directly on the ownership of AI products. However, Legal foreseeability requires the court to make a decision using the criteria it has previously used in possible application of the same nature. At this point, I have determined the criteria of level of the system's autonomy, ability to have interests in this indistinguishable similarity with human beings. I find this criteria from the decision regarding entities whose personality is disputed. If generative AI programs, we can say if this program meets this criteria, they can be admitted person on the court. But it cannot be said that programs yet in this situation. Besides, we see that the court interprets the ownership of intellectual property, especially digital artworks or invents, flexibly in accordance with the principle of living law in the first article of the additional protocol. Again, in the next page, I mentioned this case, but it is not possible to talk about the decision I have discussed one by one. In summary, the criteria determined by the court for intellectual property ownership are personality and creativity reflected in the product, the degree of original expression and human labor, human intervention in the production process, and the predictability of the result. And finally, who bears the economic risk and benefit. As a result, in the face of the rapid development of AI, the legal gap can be overcome not by static rules, but by purposive interpretation of existing legislation. The European Court of Human Rights demonstrate with capacity in its current case law to interpret the right to property dynamically in order to protect the economic value of the works. Flexible interpretation of Protocol 1, Article 1 of Protocol 1 provides predictable and consistent assurance. And the original contribution of my paper is to transform the debate on the legal status of AI from the theoretical plane to concrete criteria that can be used in judicial practice. Thank you for all. I included my reference sources at the end of the presentation. That's
Thank
all.
you. Thank you, Nazmiye, for this very technical presentation that intersects the AI and legal regulations. We will discuss these very important topics, I believe, in the years to come. But now I need to move to the third presenter, Fatma Esra Sağır from Kilis 7 Aralık University. Fatma, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your introducing me. Can I share my screen?
Yes, I think you are granted
Okay.
the right to share. Yes, you can do it now.
Okay. My presentation is about the transformation process of religious publishing through the Diyanet Çocuk magazine. By the way, do you see my presentation paper?
Not now. Please try again. Now,
Oh, sorry. Okay, I will try again.
please.
Okay.
Yes, now we can see.
You see, do you see my presentation now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I will today I will present Transformation in Religious Publication for Children, a qualitative analysis of Diyanet Çocuk and Jim magazines. This data based on from my master's thesis, which I completed in 2024 in the field of sociology of religion at Istanbul University. This paper is not merely a desk-based study written by going through old documents. It's a work grounded in field research involving archival analysis and in-depth interviews with 19 experts conducted in Ankara, Istanbul, and Malatya. My aim was to examine how state-produced policies resonate within these three distinct social habitats. At the outset, I would like to emphasize that this research doesn't adopt any political stance whatsoever. I approached the subject purely as a sociologist, externally as a neutral observer. This is not a critique, rather it's an attempt to understand how the fault lines between state and religion, when they shift or fracture, are reflected in something as seemingly simple as children's magazine. When discussing religion-state relations in Turkey, our minds often jump directly on to the founding of republic, as if everything was shaped overnight. However, the roots of this process going back to periods of Sultan Selim III and Mahmud II. Mahmud II sought to break the absolute dominance of the ulema over education and bring to education under the state's control, modernizing it in the process. In response, the Sheikh al-Islam prepared a memorandum of objection to present to Sultan. Mahmud II reportedly tore up that document. The moment when the paper was torn symbolizes the beginning of centuries-long process of placing religious education under the state control. This was not merely an impulsive act, but rather a clear indication of the state asserting its authority over how citizens and the very idea of citizenship would be constructed. Thus, the relationship between religion and the state is not fixed. It resembles a pendulum in a constant motion. In the Turkish context, we can identify different models of secularism among this pendulum. As you can see, in the early Republican period, we can talk about the state had firm control and pendulum swung toward a rigid model of secularism, where the religion was largely isolated from the public sphere. In the later period, when religion became more visible in the public life and religious publications gained momentum, the pendulum shifted toward a more moderate position. However, this pendulum doesn't move solely according to its natural sociological rhythm. External interventions also play a role. The military coups of 1960, 1971, 1980, and the so-called postmodern coup of 1997 all intervened in this motion, forcefully redirecting the pendulum. These political interventions not only affected the trajectory of the pendulum, but also left clear traces in religious materials aimed at children. So I analyzed two mediums, two demographics, two different magazines, which were Diyanet Çocuk and Diyanet Jim. Diyanet Çocuk established in the July 1979. Their target age 7 to 14 years old, and we can see their strategic goal: broad household reach, teaching national spiritual and moral values accurately and clearly. But Diyanet Jim is established on January 2021. Their target age 4 to 6 years old, and their strategic goal is concrete behavioral values and pedagogical support for early childhood educators and parents. When I reached 1997, the year of the postmodern cop, I encountered something striking in the archives. The October 1997 issue, along with several subsequent issues, is simply missing. There is a complete void. Here, drawing on Weber's interpretive sociology, we can make the following observation. Sometimes existing data show how a system functions smoothly, but missing data reveal how that system breaks down. Absence speaks. The sudden disappearance of publication issued by a state institution cannot be explained by a simple budgetary or printing problem. It reflects internal tensions within the state, a moment when the pendulum strikes a hard wall. That unprinted issue tells us more about the tense atmosphere, and we can talk about there's a gap on 1997 issue. Also, we can say how the message evolved. The early years, the focus was on logistics, reader submissions, and establishing the medium. But on the mid-20s, geopolitical reflection can be seen. The focus was on the responding global events. We can say that as governments change, some things like religious and values represented on these issues can be changed, because another goal is on these magazines is making an identity of children. We can see also in the interview part this evidence. Participant 9 told me a publication that emerged with the aim of conveying and teaching to our children national, spiritual, and moral values, virtues, the principles of faith, and the worship practices of Islam, an accurate, clear, and sound manner. So the goal is not raised to children who are isolated from the world and limited to religious dogma. Rather, it is to cultivate individuals who integrate religious values with national identity, possess a strong cultural awareness, and demonstrate scientific and technological literacy. Also, we can say that the Diyanetçim is a demographic call. It became like a it became in the material gap in structures, and parents lack standardized age-appropriate educational materials for this specific cohort. These magazines are not talking about only abstract theology. They also talking about honesty and concept of apologizing, emotional regulation, nature and animal welfare. Also, in the field, there was a surprise that we find Nuceym magazine, which is the Arabic version of the Diyanet Çocuk magazine, distributed in the refugee camps among Syrian children. Its purpose extends beyond religious interaction. It aims to heal trauma and facilitate social integration. Similarly, special inclusion programs designed for children and disabilities, preventing exclusion and stigmatization. All these findings suggest that Diyanet is no longer merely a traditional religious institution delivering sermons in mosques. Its children's publications reveal highly institutionalized structure extending into areas such as migration, disadvantaged groups, and international integration. Religious education, in this sense, becomes a powerful tool of social policy. Thus, the relationship between religion, state, and society is not a static set of constitutional rules. It's a living organism, constantly adapting to societal needs. To understand a society's subconscious, it may be enough to look at the magazines its children read. I would like to conclude my presentation with a question. If the relationship between a society and its state can be mapped through the cover of a children's magazines, then think back to your own childhood. What were those colorful magazines and innocent cartoons you consumed, whispering to you about the political and social anxieties of your time? And which larger societal pendulums shaped those seemingly innocent memories? Thank you for listening me and attends.
Thank you, Fatma Esra, for this wonderful presentation and very good questions to think about. But we don't have really time to think about them now. We will hopefully think and discuss later in other settings of similar kind. Now, the floor will be for Abdurrahman Shan from Istanbul University, who will be, I think, talking about MESH system and how it changed from modern to postmodern periods.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm gonna talk about the mesh system and its transformations from beginning. Today, maybe I can talk about the future. So let me share my screen for you. The mesh system, as you know, maybe it's referred to traditional method of artistic transmission through master to his or her student. But at the same time, these mesh system also used to transmit the Islamic sciences as well. They use both Islamic sciences and the Islamic arts use the similar methods. And also this prayer, it's called Rabbi Yasir, that shows a strong connection between the Islamic arts education and the Islamic science educations. Because especially if you study Islamic calligraphy, you begin with that prayer to want help. So as I told you before, the traditional Islamic arts during the centuries transmitted through the mesh system. But especially after the modernism and the postmodernism, and with the effect of the generational change, this system has changed. So we actually looking for, can tradition survive without losing its origin, its essence, its meaning? So this study argues that tradition can be reinterpreted or not, or do we still preserve the essence of the art, essence of the meaning of the art or not? So as I told you, the mesh system refers to the traditional pedagogy. From the beginning to right now, in the difference of arts, like in the music, in the Islamic calligraphy, in the illustration, in the marbling, and etc., we use this traditional pedagogy. With the traditional pedagogy, you don't learn only the art itself. You learn the style of your master. You learn the ethic of your master. You learn the behavior of your master. You learn modern art. And also another topic that's really related with the mesh system is Hezarfenlik. This Hezarfenlik basically means that interdisciplinary mastery. So you know art very well, and at the same time you know another art very well. So in my work, I actually argue that do we have still Hezarfen people? Because especially like in the before, we had lots of Hezarfen people, but now we don't have many more. So what is the problem? What is the cause that we don't have any Hezarfens? So I'm just looking the effects of the modernism and the postmodernism with these two main concepts. Yes, you can see a picture that really shows us the mesh system. Yes. I think I need to accept someone. Emir. Yes, okay. So in these mesh system, the student learns directly from the master. However, what is transmitted is not only technique. The students observe the master styles, manners, discipline, patience, artistic sensibility. This means the meshq is not only an educational method, but also an ethical and a spiritual formation. For example, in the traditional music, a student doesn't merely learn notes or melodies. The student learns the style of the performance, the emotional depth, the correct manner of the interpretation, and the inner discipline of the art. Similarly, in the calligraphy, in Islamic calligraphy, in the Husnahat, the student doesn't only learn the shape of the letters. The student learns patience, attention, humility, and the respect for the chain of the transmission. For this reason, like I describe meshq as an embodied and experiential pedagogy. Yes, this is another picture that shows the meshq system. So another question, why meshq matters? So why does the meshq matters for the today? There are three main reasons. First, with this system, if you learn your art from your master with this system, you basically preserve the artistic authenticity. Traditional arts not only made of the external forms, they also have inner rules, measures, and the historical styles. Meshq protects these dimensions, actually. Secondly, with the meshq transfers we can say üslup or style. Style is difficult to learn from only books. You cannot learn style from the books. You can learn it by seeing, by hearing, by repeating, and by being corrected by a master. The last one is so important. Even when you study from a record, from a video, you need to be corrected by a master. Number three, with this meshq system, the system builds a moral discipline. Traditional arts require patience, humility, continuity, and the respect. These values cannot be transmitted only through technical explanations. This is why meshq still remains in this century, even after like modernism, even after postmodernism, even after the COVID, even after the AI. Still, the meshq system has remains, and probably it will remain forever. Yes. Yeah. Hezarfenlik. The Hezarfen refers to a person who has mastery in many fields. In Ottoman intellectual and artistic culture, this was an important ideal. We have lots of Hezarfen people in the Ottoman times, and like Hezarfen was not only special in the one narrow field, so he could be involved in music, calligraphy, marbling, poetry, architecture, or other branches of art of knowledge. This reflects a holistic understanding of the knowledge. And in the traditional world, art, ethics, spirituality, and intellectual life were not sharply separated from each other. You can see a strong connection among or between these topics. A person's artistic formation was also connected to his moral and intellectual formation as well. Today, however, knowledge is highly specialized. Like with that problem, you have many advantages, but it can also create fragmentation. A person may know one field very deeply, but lose the ability to connect it with the broader meanings. I can say that. In this sense, Hezarfenlik is still important today. Even we don't have many Hezarfen people, even we cannot call lots of people as a Hezarfen, it's still important today. It reminds us that knowledge should not only be accumulated, it should be also integrated. So you can see some of the famous Hezarfen people from the history, Niyazi Sayan or Kazaskan, Mustafa İzzet Efendi, and etc. So let's talk about the modernism and the postmodernism for a while. Modernism deeply affected the traditional arts and educational methods. With the modernism, education became more institutional, more systematic and standardized. This brought certain advantages, of course. It made education more accessible and more organized. But however, it also created certain losses. In the traditional mesh system, the master is at the center, your master at the center. But in the modern education, the institution, the curriculum, and the technical knowledge often become central. As a result, master-centered learning become weaker after the modernism. But when it comes to the postmodernism, postmodernism produced a different effect. While modernism often valued universality or standardization, postmodernism emphasized plurality, locality, and the different forms of the knowledge. Because of this, postmodernism gave us a chance to reinterpret the tradition. Traditional methods such as MESH began to be seen not only as old-fashioned practices, but as alternative and the valuable forms of the learning. Basically, I can say that the postmodernism creates a hybrid structure for us. So in my work, my methodology based on the qualitative research. So I made lots of interviews with the students, with the masters, and I asked them some questions that's really related with the effects of the modernism, postmodernism, and the generational changes. I choose artists from the musical background and the like the calligraphy background, and I found some results. For all of them, for a master from very old generation or a master from very younger generation, MESH is still essential. Tradition is still so important. But the traditional has changed. The traditional teachings, the traditional methods has changed. With these, after the effects of the modernism and the postmodernism, their style has changed, but they believe that the essence has been protected with the MESH system. Even MESH has changed its cover, but still it's protected. You can see these three people.
Abdurrahman, you have less than a minute.
Okay, then. This is my last slide. According to the older generation, we have to preserve the MESH system without any effects. So, like, they are actually a little bit close-minded, honestly. Younger generation, they believe that we can use these modern techniques and we can reinterpretation about this MESH system. Especially after the AI, most of the masters believe that we'll have to change the MESH system the completely without losing its essence, without losing its meaning. But that will be so hard for us. Most of the masters, they still don't know about it. Today, we're still discussing about these issues. What will happen after the effects of the AI on the MESH system, especially on the calligraphy and on the other things. Yes, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. We should really understand these transformations in cultural items and practices such as MESH system, and it was kind of a reminder for us to rethink about all these, practices that we inherited in the Ottoman period. All right, now the last presenter of the panel, Rümeysa Yılmaz from Istanbul 29 Mayıs University. The floor is yours, Rümeysa.
Thank you for introduction. My presentation is about a simple and common topic, so I don't use visual presentation, so I don't share my screen. Dear participants, today I will present to you my study entitled Muslim Woman Identity Between Hegemonic Feminism and Cultural Norm. In this study, we will analyze the complex relationship between Muslim women and both the patriarchal structure within their own societies and the feminism that attempt standardization them. We have three parts in this presentation. Then I will complete with a conclusion. Firstly, I will talk about the word hegemony. This word in title. This word indicates that one element within a same system is privileged to another. In Western feminism, every woman who needs help and whose right need to be defined is within the same system. But only the right of non-Muslim women are protected. For example, we don't need to look too far in this topic. Looking at the data of UN Women Association, Israel has killed more than 38,000 women in Gaza since October 2023. Also, and killed more than 200 women in Iran. The feminist group is Iran that support women's liberation before war. They don't make statement about the Iranian women killed by Israel. Likewise, Israel has killed more than 270 women in Lebanon, and there was no reaction from feminist group. Here is a hypocrisy. I could give many examples, but there isn't enough time, so I give you one or two examples for each topic. In Western-centered feminism has for many years described Muslim women as passive, loser, and subject who need to be liberated, especially after the 9/11, clothing of Muslim women were symbolized backwardness, and it was taught that in order to protect her rights, she must first choose to be free her hijab, because Western feminism, with their secular view, don't believe or don't understand that Muslim women wear hijab with their own free will. They see it as a form operation against women. However, my main argument in first part is that a woman wearing hijab and her religion doesn't mean she is not seeking her rights. I want to recommend you a book for this topic. You can look at the book of Lila Ebu Lukot. Its name is Do Muslim Woman Need Saving? After then, in the second part, I want to improve a self-criticism about Muslim society. One of the biggest misconceptions in Muslim societies is the presentation of local and patriarchal cultural norm as religion. In many regions, the deprivation of women from education is not an Islamic rule. This is a consequence of pre-Islamic culture or established patriarchal traditions. There is a lot of reflection of this situation. In the simplest term, while women were centered to the mosque and social life in early era of Islam, today, women were pushed out by patriarchal conception. The most striking example of this is Juma and Eid prayers. In many Muslim society, these prayers are perceived as for men only. Because of cultural exception, women's participation is not encouraged. The inequality in mosque designs is even worse. As a Muslim woman, if you want to pray in mosque, you will have to tolerate the smallest, darkest, and worst places of mosques. Now, I want you to think, if this transformation can be observed in daily routine, how can deep and effective it be? These Muslim women who couldn't get even basic right direct to Western feminism for seeking their right, and this caused many deformation in some social structures. The family structure is one of the most important of them. And the last part, the Muslim women are deprived from her right given by Islam because of patriarchal system, and they were not protected by Western feminism. And Muslim women who claim their rights are left alone. At this point, Muslim women look for a different way, and the term Islamic feminism occurred like this. This understanding is based on that the main message of Islam, fairness between woman and man. But the later transformation is caused patriarchal interpretations. And while doing this, Islamic feminism didn't categorize Muslim women like Western feminism. Islamic feminism, which was founded in the late 20th century, has reinterpreted the Quran without patriarchal manipulations, and it is sought after today in Turkey. Some names can be considered as pioneers of this action, such as Gonca Kuriş or Rümeysa Çamdereli. Rümeysa Çamdereli is founder of Havle Association, and there are so many names in word. In conclusion, the liberation of Muslim women does not have to be a secularization, but rather Muslim women seek justice within the fair principle of their religion and protect their identities. Today, Muslim women should not need protection from Western feminism, but they should also not back down the right granted to them by Islam. Therefore, the concept of Islamic feminism should be taken seriously, because this feminism, except for some extreme point, is not opposed to our values. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rümeysa, for this illuminating presentation. There's, yes, a problem we need to discuss here. Particularly, I really like the part that you describe the mosque structure and why we are giving the less preferable places to women to prayer. This is something that we need to discuss, and Diyanet Center is one of the places that needs to discuss this kind of things, not just in the States, but also in Turkey. Perfect. Now we have 2 minutes to go for discussions and comments. We'd like to hear from you. As you see, lots of different topics were presented here, and I really enjoyed listening to them. And I believe that you will improve these presentations and turn them into papers and maybe publish at the high-ranking journals in your fields. But if you have any questions, any comments to add, the floor is yours. We have 2-3 minutes left. Do you have any questions, any comments? If not, we can close the session. And I believe you can listen to all these presentations again when the session gonna be uploaded on YouTube, and it won't be in a very far away time. So please continue to follow up the activities at Diyanet Center for America, and thank you for your participation to this wonderful panel. We'd like to have you the next time at one of the activities of the center as well in the future. Take very good care. All the best.
Thank you.